Listen carefully, because what I'm about to tell you was never meant to leave the grave. They buried it under 6 feet of dirt, beneath rotting timber and false records, hoping time itself would swallow the truth. But time does not bury the stench of human flesh boiled in iron. It lingers, it breathes, and once you hear it, you can never unhear it. In the spring of 1847, a widow stepped off a wagon train into a nameless settlement in the Dakota Territory. She carried only 2 things, a weathered leather satchel and an iron pot so massive it took 4 men to lift. No one questioned why she needed such a thing. Hunger has a way of silencing suspicion. Her name was whispered as Martha Sinclair, a woman of soft voice, gray-streaked hair, and a gaze that never quite met your eyes, always fixed just below as if measuring your throat. Within weeks, she had opened a boarding house, offering clean beds and hot meals in a place where most men survived on beans, hardtack, and despair. They came to her like moths to flame, and one by one, they disappeared. The records say she married 9 men in a single year. 9 weddings, 9 funerals, 9 promises of forever reduced to entries in a faded ledger. The townsfolk muttered of illness, bad luck, the cruel hand of the frontier. But what they did not see was the iron pot, that bottomless vessel in her kitchen, always steaming, always filled with a stew so rich, so intoxicating, that men swore they'd never tasted its like before. What if I told you those men were still there, not in the ground, not in coffins, but dissolved, devoured, transformed into a feast that still haunts history's shadow? You see, history will tell you Martha was a monster, a black widow who married men for survival, then murdered them for their gold. But history is always written by the institutions that benefit from a single narrative. What if her story was never about love, or even money? What if it was about control? The kind of control that requires obedience at the table before it demands blood at the altar. Every guest who entered her boarding house left changed. Some spoke of strange dreams after eating her stews. Dreams of drowning in black water, of voices whispering in languages they didn't understand. Others said they felt stronger, more confident, as if a hidden force moved inside them. But soon after, they grew weaker. Their faces hollowed, their eyes dulled, and they vanished, claimed by fever according to the official reports. Yet the fever spread to no one else. It consumed only her husbands, only the men who signed their names in her register. Think about that. 9 men in 1 year, each bound to her by vows of trust, each lured into her web by promises of warmth and nourishment. It wasn't just murder, it was ritual. A cycle, a system. She fed them the illusion of security, then broke them down, body and spirit, until they became nothing but fuel for her iron pot. And here's the part you were never supposed to notice. Martha's methods mirror something far older than the Dakota frontier. Ancient cults practiced transubstantiation feasts, where flesh was not wasted but consumed, so that power could transfer from one life into another. What the miners mistook for stew may have been something far more calculated, an unholy inheritance of strength boiled down to its essence. They thought they were eating to live. They were feeding her instead. The more you study Martha's story, the more it stops looking like crime and starts looking like a blueprint. Her boarding house wasn't just a place to eat and sleep. It was a machine for breaking men. She controlled the food, the beds, the rituals of daily life. And in that control, she discovered a truth institutions have used for centuries. If you own a man's appetite, you own his mind. Ask yourself, how many of your habits, your hungers, your comforts are truly yours? How many were designed for you, fed to you by powers that understand your weaknesses better than you ever will? Martha didn't invent this system. She was only practicing what kings, priests, and governments had perfected long before her, the art of reshaping identity through consumption. Think of it, each husband thought he was choosing her. In reality, every choice was engineered. The tender meal that made him trust her, the warm bed that lowered his defenses, the vows spoken under the illusion of love. He believed he was climbing toward fulfillment, when in truth he was descending into a pot he could never escape. And that, my friend, is the psychology of every control system you've ever lived under. Now here's where I turn the mirror toward you. If you feel the dissent, if you've sensed that much of your life is nothing more than someone else's recipe, then I want you to prove it. Right now, type these words in the comments twice. I see the pot. Those 3 words are not random. They are a signal, a lock, a declaration that you refuse to be boiled without resistance. Type them twice, and something shifts inside you. A man who sees the pot is a man who cannot be cooked, and once you've seen it, you'll never taste the world the same way again. By now you understand, Martha's boarding house was not an isolated horror. It was a shadow of something bigger. Her pot was a symbol, a prototype, a crude reflection of the cauldrons still boiling around you every single day. You think the world is built on freedom? No, it is built on hunger. And those who control hunger control men. Martha fed her husbands until they trusted her. Institutions feed you distractions, comforts, and desires until you trust them. Then, just like her victims, you begin to weaken. Your edges soften. You accept the story they cook for you until the line between truth and illusion dissolves like marrow into broth. Why do you think every empire in history controlled the grain, the salt, the bread? Why do you think religion ties its power to ritual meals, to blood and wine and flesh? It is not survival thereafter. It is transformation, to turn men into something less than men, and to feast upon what remains. Martha Sinclair disappeared the night her recipe book vanished from the courthouse. Some say she fled. Others whisper she was taken. But look closer. Her methods survived, multiplied, refined. Today, it isn't stew in a pot. It's information fed through glowing screens. It's the daily meal of fear, envy, and obedience ladled into your mind. And just like those miners, you mistake it for nourishment while it hollows you out. The truth is this: the pot never left. It only changed shape. The boarding house became the state. The stew became your culture. And you, unless you awaken, are still on the menu. Now listen closely, because this is the part that was never written in any archive, never whispered in the trial records, never carved into a headstone. The reason Martha married 9 men was not for love, nor for money, nor even for hunger. It was for identity. Each vow, each union, each body boiled down was part of a ritual older than this continent itself, a ritual of inheritance. With every husband she consumed, she absorbed not just their flesh, but their strength, their secrets, their very names. That is the hidden law of power. Consume enough identities, and you become something more than human, something untouchable. That's why she vanished without a trace. Martha Sinclair did not die. She transformed, and now you see why her story was buried. Because if you knew the truth, that entire systems, governments, corporations, even faiths operate on this same principle, you might start to resist. You might stop feeding them. You might stop offering your mind, your labor, your very soul into their pot. Look around you. Every screen that flickers, every ritual you repeat without thought, every false choice you've been given, these are the ladles stirring you down to nothing. Just as the miners mistook her stew for salvation, you mistake comfort for freedom. But a man who sees the pot knows the truth. What feels like warmth may already be the boil. So here is your choice. Walk away from this knowledge, and you will return to the stew, simmering, dissolving, consumed by forces that see you as nothing more than meat. Or carry it with you, let it change you, let it harden you into something that cannot be dissolved. Remember this: the pot still waits. But now you are no longer inside it.